2 computers for this, huh?
Don't need 2 computers. I need 1 computer. My Star Tribune laptop doesn't seem to support a lot of the technology needed by the board. So actually, John Avison from the Twins helped me out with this one, which I appreciate. That's the voice of Tom Kelly, longtime Twins manager, in spring training camp helping the Twins as usual. I'm Jim Souhan. This is Souhan-Unfiltered at Souhan-Unfiltered.com. You can find it at iHeartRadio, iTunes. Thanks to my sponsors, The Local, Kieran's Irish Pub, and O'Gara's, 3 great Irish pubs.
The wait is finally over. Baseball season's here at last, and the excitement continues all season long at DraftKings.com, the official daily fantasy partner of Major League Baseball. Daily fantasy means no season-long commitments, just instant cash, instant gratification. Why wait until the end of the season to claim victory when you can win huge cash every day? At DraftKings, it's like a brand new season every time you play. Just select 2 pitchers and 8 position players, stay under the salary cap, and you could be on your way to an enormous payday. Last year, Peter from Colorado won $1 million at DraftKings in one day, just playing fantasy baseball. Hundreds of thousands of fantasy sports fans just like you have already cashed in at DraftKings. Now it's your turn. Hurry to DraftKings.com now and enter promo code SPREAKER, that's SPREAKER, to play for free. You could win part of the $300 million in prizes being awarded this season. Use promo code SPREAKER for free entry now at DraftKings.com. DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com.
Mr. Kelly, when you first got here, you talked a little bit about having to be cautious with your workload, but it looks like you're going pretty full speed to me.
Pretty good. Jim, be honest, I don't think I'm moving as quick as I used to, but like the doctor said, you're 64, not 25, so sometimes that doesn't sink in too well with me. But I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm getting my end of it done that I'm supposed to. Things are going to increase here in the next week because the minor league guys, coaches, staff, they're going to go down to the minor league camp. So I've had enough of orientation, so to say, or getting used to the heat and the wind, and so hopefully I'm ready to maybe move forward one more step because I think we're going to need one more step here shortly. So, things are moving okay, and I'm doing fine. I do what I'm supposed to do. I have my own pace, and which is fine. So I haven't said anything, well, I need to stop or anything like that. So I'm sort of happy.
Good. It's and one aspect of being down here that gets forgotten because we all love being here so much is that heat does take it out of you a little bit.
Well, it didn't go from 72, 74 to 78 to 80, 82, 84, or whatever. It just went from a couple days were a little cool, but for the most part, it's been in the 80s. So, and then if the wind blows, it can beat you up. But especially us Northerners who are used to the cold weather and come down here and you get thrown into 84 right away. That's a little tough. But there was no gradual increase in the temperature. It just went quick. And but that's the way it is, and it's better than cold. So we're not complaining by any stretch of the imagination. But again. Have a perfect world, we'd rather ease into it. But we're happy to be in Florida and see the green grass and watch the players get ready for another season.
When I was on the Twins beat in the 90s, you used to talk about your dogs and your interest in dog racing. Are you still involved in that at all?
No dog, no more dogs, no more horses. Sometimes the activity or hobby that you might choose to pursue, whatever it may be, if it stops being fun or the bad times outweigh the good times, then it's time to find a new hobby. So we sort of got to that point where, there was some good stuff, and then there was some bad, and the bad started weighing a little bit more heavily. So we decided that was enough.
We don't have to talk about the stroke if you don't want to.
Doesn't matter.
Any thoughts? Just what it was like?
Well, I always feel, like I said, I talked to a gentleman just a few minutes ago who went through same thing, per se, and he's doing fine, 6 months, and I'm coming up on 6 now, so I should be better, and but it's they didn't lie when they said 6. I was hoping 3. I should be ready to go, but that wasn't the case at all. Those doctors, they say 6 months for a reason, so it's 6. It's going to be close to that. So I'm hopefully another week or so, 2 weeks, is going to be 6 months, and hopefully I feel a little better yet. So it's quite a grind, and the doctors were wonderful to me in Minnesota, and they put me through the ringer so they would know I was ready to go or come down here and participate. And I could see if I was 3 months short, I probably couldn't have. And so if you had to have one, and I did, and okay, it's sort of, I'm not saying it's worked out or anything, you don't want to put it that way, but it's the timing seems to have worked out where I was able to come down to Florida. But if it was just 3 months ago, I don't think I would have been able to. So did a lot of work and a lot of grind and exercise and treadmills and stress tests and MRIs, and don't want to sound like I'm crying about it, but it was a lot of work to convince some doctors that I could come down.
Are you allowed to smoke cigars at this point?
Well, we don't smoke any cigars anymore. Okay. We haven't for a while now. Okay. I'm not saying if somebody hands me one on the golf course, I don't pretend to throw it away or anything. I'll chew on it or light it once or twice, just it's a social thing. But again, if somebody offers me one, I take it, but I don't buy them anymore. And actually, the doctor didn't really have a problem with that. So I listed my bad habits to him and to them, and they seemed to feel okay about it. So I felt pretty good about that. I was, the only thing that they suggested sternly was I have to lose some weight. Weighed 218. And they screamed pretty loudly that they wanted at 2. So, and then the comment was 200 or less. So we're working on that end of it, and it's sometimes tough down here because you like to go out in the evening and maybe go to dinner. There's so many nice places to go, but I found that if I'm going to lose weight, I got to stay with it. So again. Hopefully we'll try to creep near that mark by the end of spring training.
Do you still come to spring training because of your love of the game, or is it more that you feel like you have an obligation to help at this point? Or
probably
C.
This year I would say B is the right answer. I've talked to Paul so much over the winter through his whole process. Interviewing and then once he got the job and he started talking about organizational procedures, how to operate, how to run the camp. What we're fortunate here is Joe Leppel was in town, who's our minor league coordinator and has vast experience in running programs. Gene Glenn was in a few times to help Paul. Joe Vavers runs spring training in the minor league. So he had a good source of people there to rely on, and he called me with this and that, and what about this, and I think, as I mentioned to you before, where you set your teams up and you try to put them where people together that are going to play together, like let's say a Dozier and a Santana. So let's keep them on the same team. That's sort of simple things to that nature, but then. You want to teach somebody to back up Mauer. Kenny Vargas certainly can do that. But say Joe has a mishap on the field or whatever and has to leave the game, Vargas is the DH. Well, you don't want to really put him in at first. So who can we use in that position to play first to back up Joe on a situation? So let's try to put some people, the Hermans, Danny Rolfing, different people, put them together where then I can instruct them together and bring them along in case Paul needs the Kepler kid is another one in that boat. But let's put them together on a team so when I'm working with that group I can get them all together at the same time and run through instead of go trying to chase them all down and do it. So it's different little things like that take a little bit of organization or actually experience to recognize those situations where you're going to have to do certain little things. And without rambling on here, it's just different things that work better in a program in what we do here in baseball, try to develop and make sure you're covered on different scenarios. So it's different work processes and sheets, and well, let's do this, let's do that. And like today, for example, I got a sheet to work off of today, and Joe Vavra put together it's perfect, but we tweak it and do this and do that to make it work for our purposes that we have to do. So there's different little things, and in that regard, I feel a little obligated, somewhat obligated. And Paul, I like to think we're pretty good friends, and I think he trusts me with things and asks my opinion, and I think he respects it a lot. And so in that regard, I wanted to come to spring training and help him if he needed it. And like I said earlier, he's got wonderful people here already, and Vavra and Leppel and Gene Glenn. So he's got a lot of experience and know-how. But there's been a few things that have gone on the first couple weeks now, and I offered a few things here and there that try to smooth it out a little bit. But I did feel obligated to try to come down and be here in case he needed some help.
When you were growing up, what got you into baseball?
Probably my father, I guess. I'd have to say, I don't know. I was like 5 or 6 years old and been playing ever since I can remember. And I think to play in the Little League, you had to be 7 or 8 or something, and they hook or crooked me on a team and got me going. The only thing, my mother had to make a uniform.
Really?
Yeah, because they didn't have enough uniforms, and then they got me in there. Enterprise Hook and Ladder Company, fire truck, and so she had to put together a uniform, and which she did, and there I went. But I was playing Little League like when I was 6 or something, and so I played Little League and got going. But back home in Jersey, we switched sports. We talked about this before too, where it was football season. Well, you threw the football around. If it was baseball, it was the baseball. And basketball was basketball. So we sort of rolled with whatever we were doing or whatever season it was, and did them all. And I thought, there's big discussion about those sort of things now, about the kids just anchoring on a one sport and end up hurting themselves because they never use the other muscles they have. And again, I don't know. I'm not smart enough for all that. But again, I was glad that we played all the sports and participated right through high school and all that stuff. But then signed after high school to play professional. And so it's been baseball pretty much since. But again, we roll with the punches back there in Jersey, and whatever sport it was, that's the one we played.
I always thought of you as a lifelong twin. You reminded me the other day behind the batting cage that it was the Seattle Pilots who drafted
Seattle
you.
Pilots. I think it was the 4th round. They didn't get to pick the first round or two. Something with the expansion. And then they picked me, and I had never spoken to a Seattle scout, or my father hadn't anyway. And I guess they saw me playing in the Jersey Shore League. I played in a lot of leagues when I was 17 and 16. And I played in the men's league with college guys and down Jersey Shore. I played AAA and American League. I had, there was games, like on weekends, I played 4 or 5 games on Saturday and Sunday.
Wow.
And my mother would pack up the uniforms and some kind of lunch, and there I go. I get in the car and go. and change uniforms when we got to the next place to play. And but my father made me. I had a shoe shine kit in the car. And after I got done the first game, before I went out on the field for the second game, I had to have my shoes shined.
Wow.
So that was mandatory. So, like my father used to say, if you're going to strike out, at least you're going to look good doing it. So, there were certain rules that I had to oblige by that he felt were important. I always tell the story, we were kids. My Dad would take us up to the old Polo Grounds in New York or Yankee Stadium, and in those days they would open the gates at least 2 hours ahead of time. So you could go in the ballpark and watch all the batting practice, all the outfield and infield practice, because outfield and infield were, mandatory in those days. That was it, And we had to watch all that and watch the players get ready to play, and then we'd stay like 3 innings of the game, and then we'd drive back to Jersey and listen to the rest of the game on the radio. But we did that quite often, and he was big on going up and watching what the players do to get ready to play and how they throw the ball and hit, and the whole package. So it was, I think back at it now, he wanted to stay and watch the game, but he had a rhyme and reason why we did things. So, but there was a lot of watching and paying attention to the practice time. So I guess that's how it got sort of ingrained in me about the fundamentals of the game and trying to execute them properly, or at least hope they work as best they can. But to answer your first question, I guess my father was the answer to the question.
Was he a ball player or coach?
Yeah, he pitched for the Giants organization. In fact, he pitched in St. Cloud, Minnesota. I think it was a D League or a C, or they had a lot of letters those days.
Yes.
But he pitched 2 years. In fact, Charlie Fox, old Charlie, and you have to get your older customers here to come up with Charlie Fox. But I played against Charlie Fox, and he was managing the Phoenix Giants in his later years in the Pacific Coast League. And I was in Tacoma playing for the Twins in AAA. He was the manager there in Phoenix, and so I got to say hello. And whether he remembered my father or not, he said he did, but that's a long time ago. So whether he did or not, he said the right thing and said, "Yeah, I know, yeah." But I think the claim to fame that year was that he roomed with Ted Kluszewski. So
wow, that's a great name.
So that was his claim to fame. But he pitched 2 years professional, and then pitched in the they call that league out here. It's like the St. Cloud team now, and the Alexander.
Oh, like the Northwoods League or Town Ball? Okay,
Town Ball, yeah. And he pitched out in Chicago, Minnesota, and that's where I was born. But then after that, they moved back to New Jersey. So after the summer was over. But
the other thing you told me the other day was that in the old days, you'd get done with a hot workout after spring training, you look around, and guys might be drinking beer and smoking cigarettes.
Right. Yeah, that was in Seattle. Spring training, I got to go to big league camp, and I was 18 years old, and I'm in there with these men that have been playing the big league 7, 8 years, or 10 years even, like Ray Oyler, and Don Mincher, and Jim Bouton was there, and go on and on. But I got to locker next to Mincher and Oyler, Ray Oyler, and oh my, that was an eye-opening experience. So I got to see a lot of stuff that I don't know if an 18-year-old should have been seeing at that time, but those guys were crazy. But they could play. They had great careers, and so talk about I try to say once in a while to these younger kids, you keep 2 eyes and 2 ears and 1 mouth and try to use them accordingly. And so you keep your eyes open and ears open, and you listen and you see, and you say, well, that's pretty good, and that's pretty good. Well, I don't know about that, but it was quite an experience to go through with the fellas. And Joe Schultz was the manager, and he had that six-pack of Budweiser thing. He said, let's win the game and get that six-pack or something. He had something about a six-pack he always screamed out. But one funny story, Lou Piniella was there, and Joe had this meeting getting ready to go play the first spring training game, and it was in Palm Springs. And we're in training in Tempe, Arizona. And I got my eyes and ears open. I'm scared to say boo. And Joe Schultz, the manager, he must have said, now we're leaving for Palm Springs at 8 a.m. bus. Here's the names that are going on the trip, blah, blah, blah. He must have said it 10 times. Here we go, 8 o'clock. He went on and on. And then he said, at the end, he said, anybody have any questions? And Lou raised his hand and said, yeah, what time's that bus leave? And, and the next day Lou was traded to Kansas City. But that was unbelievable. Lou stood up and said, what time's the bus leave? Oh, my. That didn't work too good with Joe. And he, next day, or it wasn't one day, it was the second day, he was gone, traded. And obviously Lou went on to have a great career as a hitter and outfielder and World Series and all that stuff. So Joe might have got a little rambunctious getting rid of Lou right away. But he heard that and he just shook his head and was gone.
Wow.
That was really eye-opening at the time.
Did you ever have a player drive you that crazy where you just wanted to get him out of town?
Well, we had people we wanted to get rid of. Yeah, we had people. And I don't need to mention their names.
No.
But we had guys, one time we had a guy that had a little trouble with the police, and the policeman came in and said, Tommy, we're going to have to do something here. And I called Andy McPhail and said, Andy, you better come down here. And Andy got rid of him in 2 days. He promised the policeman he'd be out of town within the week, and he was. He was gone.
Wow.
So, you hate to get things to sometimes that point where you try to recognize some issues maybe beforehand and clean it up for, hate to have a policeman come in your office and say, we got an issue here, we got to fix it. And so we fixed it, and that was fine. Get him out of town, and that was fine. So I appreciated the help they gave us, and so there's different things, and there's other things. Players, mostly pitchers, I would say that we can't watch that anymore. It's too depressing for everybody. So got to go. But in the same vein, you could be wrong, make a mistake, but I like to have felt like I didn't get rid of anybody that really hurt us. And I think we talked about that once before, a couple years ago, about, they left us. They really didn't, I'm not saying a free agent going to go, but
right.
We really didn't trade anybody away that, Mark, Billy traded Erickson, or forget who traded Erickson for
that was
Klingon.
Terry. Yeah.
But that maybe wasn't so good. But for the most part, if we got rid of you, you didn't really do much after that.
Right. And Erickson really didn't do that much after that point. He's still okay.
He
He's better than Klingenbeck, no question about
sure.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, he had problems.
Yes.
So.
Yes. I always found it interesting that on the surface, you and Andy McPhail seemed, and by the way, this is very informal. Feel free to crack open a water or take your time and get a drink.
Got it.
You and Andy seem to be very different kinds of people, and yet you worked so well together.
Yeah, we were different. There's no question. Yeah, we had a couple things happen, and of course there's going to be things. Everybody has them, but I tried to get him to think like if he was in the clubhouse, working with these players and the staff and the clubhouse staff and the whole group down there. come on, be part of this. Think this way. But again, he had a job in a higher position where he had to sort of run it. And I understood that. But hey, put yourself in our shoes for a minute and just now go, and that seemed to work. So, and what was good about Andy, he'd look you in the eye, listen, and sincerely listen, and then make the decision. So, and he tossed and turned on a few things, Viola trade, and that was a big one for him. That was really hard for him, and of course me too. But because I started with Frank in minor leagues in Double-A, and his first day, so it was hard for me, and it was really hard for him to push that trigger on that one. But there's decisions they got to make business-wise and things like, and even Kirby Puckett, as great as he was for the Twins, when Mr. Pohlad signed him for, at that time, was the biggest contract. That changed within a couple hours, but
right.
One of the bigger contracts, and then Andy explained to me, well, if we, you do this, there's no money for anything else, so, but how are you going to get rid of Kirby? You can't do that, so, there was some real hard decisions, and I understood them both ways, but not that I liked them, but I tried to understand them. And he traded Bruno, and, he felt like things he had to do, as much as I didn't want to. He's the boss, so everybody's got a boss, so got to do what the boss says. But I sometimes I try to get him to think like if he was in the clubhouse, and he, and I think he listened to that. Now, he might have been pacifying me a little bit, but he was good. I enjoyed Andy. He was he'd look you in the eye and listen, and it wasn't the token listen. He listened, and so I thought it was good.
And obviously, you dealt with Terry as your general manager for a long time, and from the outside, it looked like it took Terry a little while to kind of feel real comfortable. But I'd like your opinion.
Yeah,
of that.
I think so. I think that's fair. And the thing you had to remember about Terry, he's a scout at heart. He is a scout, and that's what he enjoys. I mean, he really enjoys it, and he likes watching people and how they react and the things they do. And that's his business.
Mm-hmm.
And he really, and you have to remember that when you're talking to him, and this and that may transfer well on paper. Like one time we had a guy come in, we needed somebody to run. We needed somebody with some speed, and we had a position where we could afford to do that. And they brought a guy in, and I said, well, can he go from first to third, on a base hit? And he said he's a six runner, and six meaning that people that are listening, 6 is pretty good.
Yeah.
8's the best.
Mm-hmm.
2 stinks.
Right.
He runs like me. 4, 5, 6 is really pretty good. And then I said, well, if he's on second and the ball gets hit to the outfield, is he going to score? And the answer was, well, he's a 6 runner. I said, what? I understand that when you grade him out, he's a 6, but can he score? And the damnedest thing happened. I put him in the run one night. He steals second. Wonderful. Then he stole third. It was wonderful. I said, son of a, this is pretty good.
By the way, it's the podcast. If you want to say son of a bitch, you can say that too.
I wasn't going to say that. And
okay.
Then he got to third, and now the ball went in the dirt in the Metrodome. Pass ball, wild pitch. And it kicked away, and he's the winning run. And the ball rolled on the AstroTurf in the dome. It rolled all the way towards the dugout on the first base side. All the players jumped up. I know I jumped, and we're all looking at home plate. And all of a sudden, there was nobody there. And we looked back at third, and there he was standing, he's a 6 runner. The moment of truth came, and that 6 wasn't too good there. But, so a lot of things transfer numbers-wise, and he can do this, he can do that. But still, when the player crosses the line and gets in a situation, now what does he do? What's going to happen? And that's the guy you want, So there's different things like I believe in that I think still hold true. I know there's a lot of sabermetricians out there and dissect them numbers, and it's all good. It's all conversation, and you can look at those numbers, and I do. I try to look at. I don't look at them all, but I try to read them at times and see which ones I think really mean something to the game. And this is the kind of thing I'm talking about where it transfers to winning, and just because this guy can get on base, that doesn't mean he knows how to run the bases. He and score a run. And Herbeck really couldn't run much, but he scored a lot of runs because he knew how to pretty much run the bases. And he could go first to third better than some guys that could really run because they didn't know how to read the balls as well and stuff like this. Well, that makes him a 5 or 6 runner, and Herbeck's a 2 or 3, but he went to first to third better than the 5s and 6s. So, you still got to see it on the field when it counts, and then I think you can look at those numbers, but again, you still got to dig a little deeper and see for yourself that he knows how to score a run or whatever it is, those numbers. But I like the on-base percentage and how it transfers into guys scoring runs, like Dozier last year scored over 100 runs. They're the kind of guys a manager wants. He wants the guys that know how to score and can score runs. Molitor, Puckett. They can run the bases. They know how to run the bases. They run them aggressively, and they score runs. They're the guys you want. You got to get at least 2, 3, 4 of them guys on your team each year. If you have 2 or 3 that know how to score 100 runs, it's going to make your life a lot easier. So dissecting them numbers are good and everything, and trying to pick out the right guys and that sort of thing, but you still got to see it on the field.
My first podcast a few months ago, I had Paul Molitor on, and I asked him about a certain play, and he remembered it in incredible detail. And I think you brought up a very similar play the other day when we were talking to you. I remember, and tell me if I'm wrong, I remembered it being like 98 in Baltimore, incredibly hot, either 0-0-1 or 1-1 game, maybe top of the 8th, Molitor on third, less than 2 outs, and a pitch ticking off the bottom of Chris Hoyle's glove and going basically between his legs, and Molitor scoring standing up.
Yeah, he did that twice.
Yeah.
He did that once in the Dome and once, as you pointed out. That ball there, if I remember correctly, never left the catching area.
It did not.
Those lines, if you begin, of course, they get wiped out as the game goes on, but if you visualize those lines, I don't think it went out of those lines of the catcher, and he scored. But now you're talking different animal here. The one in Minnesota, the ball hit in the dirt, same thing, man, he was on third, and the ball never made it off the dirt part onto the AstroTurf, and he scored. It was, now he's a different being. He's, you like to have your players play at a high level or the highest level that they can possibly play at. But Paul was another jump above those, see, but he had those instincts and know-how for the game, and he would recognize the ball in the dirt, or he'd see it out of the pitcher's hand, and now it's a breaking ball and it's heading low. This has a good chance to be in the dirt. But he was ready with all that, and the other players can't do that. They can't. As much as I screamed in the dugout to them guys we had those years, because we were trying to find some players that could play a little bit, and I'd holler, I don't know how many times, please watch the base runner. But in fairness, they just weren't capable of doing those things, and majority of the people in the game, 99% of them couldn't do what Paul did. He was just a gifted guy that had great instincts and reactions to the game and studied the game enough where his instincts would take over and he just react. And there it was. But it was ingrained. It got ingrained in him pretty good. Got to give a lot of those guys that played over there in that St. Paul over there those years, Molitor and Jack Morris, Winfield. My goodness gracious, how do you get 3 guys like that out of
It's amazing.
One little section of town. That's pretty impressive. So the people that were involved with those guys and their programs got to have your hat tipped to them. Of course, they're great athletes as well, so a lot of that's involved. But again, it's he just had a higher level of play than everybody else.
You were really good at seeing future developments in the game, kind of thinking the game backwards, who was going to get to what situations were going to arise. Was that a gift, or was that studying?
I'm not sure. I got asked that question. Somebody else mentioned that to me the other day. And Paul brings it up a lot. But I think what happened, or somehow that, I'm not sure, to answer your question. I'm not sure. But I seem to get programmed to the ninth inning. Obviously, you want to get the lead. Okay. Well, you can't get the lead in the ninth. You got to get it in the first, second, third inning. But so you try to get a run on the board and get the lead because the numbers prove out if you get the lead, you win more percentage and all that stuff. But you play a little more aggressively and things. Everything seems to fall off getting the lead. And of course you can lose too, but I mean, you get the lead, you get a little more braver about things. You can hit and run, you can steal, you can try a few things, and which can generate more runs. So that's what happens. And you get behind. We just talked about this morning. Actually, it was pretty funny. It was Torrey and Minkiewicz and a couple other guys that had played for me, and we were talking about some things that happened in the past, and actually, there were a couple brawls that we were in, but we were talking about a few things. But once you got to the lead, in a perfect world, you try to get to the ninth. Now you start thinking about the ninth. Well, I got Reardon or Aguilar or Godardo or Hawkins or whatever. Well, he's going to got the ninth, maybe an out in the eighth if it's close. Or you need them, and then who's before that? The Schatzeder. But you look at your lineup card, the Keith Athertons, Berenguer, or wherever, Casey Fiend, or whatever it would be. So you start programming your mind so you're prepared for the 7th, 8th, 9th innings, and you're going to get it done. Okay, and there's no better feeling that you can have as a manager or a player or a fan that when you get to the 9th inning, you feel like you're going to win, or you get to the 8th inning, and he's going to do this, and he's going to do that, and he's going to bring this guy, and he's going to bring that guy, and boom, you're going to bring this guy, and then boom, 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 you're done. And you get the job done. So I think that's probably what happened. You program yourself to get the lead. You don't get the lead, a lot of that stuff goes out the window. And if you're getting your beat up pretty good, 8-1 in the fourth, well, now you start thinking about 8 innings instead of 9. Of course you can come back, but more than likely you're not. So you program for 8 to get through, because now you start thinking about the next day and who you're going to use and not use and things like that, and your pitching. And that's why it's important to learn to run the bullpen. So you have to have a good maintenance on your bullpen and how you run your bullpen, and all this revolves around what happens to you either that night or the night before, and what you can do or can't do the following day. So there's a lot of stuff that revolves around what's going on right now. So I think that's why you start thinking ahead and be prepared for the 7th, 8th, 9th, so you can get the job done and get the players home, because they busted their butt for you, got the lead. Boom. Now your responsibility is to get it done. Now, hopefully the starter continues on and pitches. You don't have to start doing things. But if he has to go in the 7th, well, so be it. I'm prepared. Boom. 8th, I'm prepared. 9th, I'm prepared. And we get it done and send everybody home with a good feeling. You shake hands and go. But you have to be organized, and I think you really have to organize from the back forward. Go from the back and 9 and work back, whether you're winning or losing. So, because you always got to be prepared for the next day. So you give up a game, maybe you're getting waxed up pretty good, and so, well, okay, now program myself for tomorrow, and not use people that I'm going to count on tomorrow to get it done. So there's a lot of that thinking. I think that's what he was getting at, programming from the back and then go forward. But I'm sure managers do it in different ways, and some probably are similar. And like Whitey Herzog would always say, give me a shortstop and a second baseman and a good bullpen, and I'll give it a go. So the good bullpen can really save you, and you can keep them guys in position to be successful and not ask them to do more than they're capable of doing. And when the starters do what they're supposed to do most of the time, you can do that. But when the starters let loose early and they do it 2 or 3 times a week, and now you're going to have some issues, because now you're going to have to ask bullpen people to do more than they should, and that's where you run into problems.
You won 2 World Series, and Kirby and Herbie were probably your 2 key players. I'm wondering, was there a player you had a great fondness for who wasn't, one of the stars?
Yeah, a lot of them. A lot of guys. Atherton, Danny Schatzeder, Mark Guthrie. I can go on and on about them guys. They were terrific. Scotty Leyes,
Randy Bush,
Rulo, the Bushes of the world. Even a guy like Mark Davidson. We talked about that the other day. I was talking with Danny Gladden, and those guys, those years, we had a lot of day games, the 12-15 thing, and which was great. It was I enjoyed those games actually, and I had a program pretty good where those guys, the bench guys, the Hockings, the Davidsons, Newmans, they were going to play, and they knew it. There's Butera. Those kind of guys were going to play. And they didn't have to look at the lineup card. They knew they were in there. And that was all good because they felt part of the team, made the bench players feel like, or utility guys or whatever, they were going to be in there, and they were always ready to go. And I thought we did really well in the day games. And those fellows enjoyed getting out there and playing, and they always were ready to play. So because they knew that was their time. And so that kind of stuff worked really well. Now, when things are going along decently for you, you can do these things. But once you get a little further along and you might be in those developmental years where you have to try to develop or find 25 that can work, things get a little different. But in the perfect worlds, or close to it, you can set a few things in stone, per se, and they know when they're going to play, and they know when they're going to pitch. But that's when things are going well. When things don't go well, then a lot of that goes out the window.
Did you enjoy the fact that Chip Hale became a manager this winter?
Yeah, I talked to Chip over the winter. A lot of guys called to ask about my health and things like that. But talked to Chip quite a bit, and he was very much looking forward to the challenge. And I said, Chip, if you find 5 starters, then you'll be in good shape. And, if you don't, then it won't be so much fun. But it all depends how you pitch, and that's how we're going to do. If we pitch good, especially in the beginning of the games, we'll be fine. If we don't, then it won't be. I don't care who's managing. So it doesn't matter. You got to pitch well, especially the starters, somewhat regularly. They're going to have a bad day here and there, but they can't have bad days more often than not. Then it's going to be not much fun. I don't care who's managing the team; it ain't going to work.
You've mentioned the way you watch games before. I'd like you to bring it to this audience, if you don't mind. Let's say there's a situation, maybe first and second, and fast runners, ball hit down the right field line. Where do your eyes go?
Well, maybe to the bullpen. But the first thing you got to watch is your cutoff men, if they get in position, and make sure they're in the proper position. The ball's probably going to go towards home, the throw. So you watch your infielders and make sure they're getting over to the position they're supposed to be in to relay the ball. And we do things a little different when the ball goes down the right field line, so we incorporate our first baseman a lot on that play. Other teams don't do it that way. We do. But we don't. We a little something different. A lot of it stems from the Metrodome, but we arrange things a little bit differently. So we try to make sure people are in the right positions, And that's what I try to instruct our minor league managers. And you don't need to watch the ball. You know where it went. And you need to watch the other guys, what they're doing and how they're reacting. So they're in the proper position. So making sure everybody's in the right spots is a paramount thing, and your pitcher's backing up properly. So, no, I don't watch the ball. I watch the players.
One more baseball question. You had Herbeck, a wonderful first baseman. You had Minkevich, who's a pretty spectacular fielder. Now you're kind of helping Joe Mauer transition.
Yeah.
How good do you think Joe can be at first base?
I think he was probably real close to a Gold Glove last year. I don't know how many errors he made. 1, 2?
Not many.
Either 1 or 2. I'm not sure. He probably should have had one more than he had. They didn't give him one, but one day that I thought was an error. But I think he went a long time with just one. Then I think maybe got another one. But I thought he should have had one more, but no matter. Talked to Joe today, actually, about some things about first base. And Paul wants to incorporate another pickoff play. And I like it. I like to play. Joe's got to be moving the feet pretty good because it's going to happen pretty quick. And he has to be in the right spot to make it work. He can't be late. If you're late getting to the bag, it's going to be disastrous because a lot of people are going to be running around the bases if he's not in the right spot. So it's mandatory, and we always try to preach to the guys, be early than late. Late is bad. Early is we don't get them, but at least they know we are going to do these things. So the caution flag would go up. Okay, so even if you don't get them, but I'd rather be early than late. Late is trouble. Early is okay. And so we're big on getting there early about different little things. And he brought up a couple good points about it. So that tells me he's thinking about playing at a higher level. And he played at a pretty good level last year for his first full season over there. I thought he did well. I thought there was a few things he could do better, and we've worked on those already. And he's accepted that, got through that part of it. He understands it better now. And I think he's starting to understand that he has to do a little bit more because we would like to expand some of our defense with some pickoffs. And Paul wants to put a few things in that he certainly should be able to do now that he's more situated, comfortable about what he's doing. And to Joe's credit, he brought up to me afterwards, we had a little talk, and I think right after I saw you or before I saw you.
I heard you guys start talking, yeah.
Yeah, we were. And he brought up a couple good things, and then I suggested this, and then he said, what about that? And I said, what about this? And so we came to a pretty good understanding of what he can do, and he can initiate some of the plays. Now, whether Paul wants to do that, we're going to have to talk to Paul first. But when I wrote Paul a note here today, and telling him I always, when I'm left back to be in charge and they go on the road like they are today, I always write a synopsis of the events of the day and tell him just so he knows what happened and what we did and blah, blah, blah. But I mentioned in there about these couple little things that we incorporated today's work that could need a little tweaking as we go. And again, Paul's going to decide. I'll explain to him what happened and what we think, what Joe would like or what Joe thinks. And then Paul will make a decision because it's his stamp that has to go on it. So Paul will sit and listen, and we'll explain it to him, and then Paul will decide, just like he's the boss. And so this is the kind of things I do and try to make it a little better. But it was encouraging to see Joe get involved with the conversation and have a pretty good understanding of just how it works and different things. So I think he's learning that he has to evolve more And I let him get away with a few things last year because it was okay. That was okay. But this year, when the first day I got to him, I said, we're going to do this now. We're going to do this. We want to do this a little better here. And a couple little things. And not major things, but there's things that could be better. And so he took to that right away. And that's fine. And it was good to see him or hear him today expand on a couple things. And so that was encouraging for him, for me, that he wants to do more. And he's capable of doing more. The first year somebody moves to a spot, you don't want to inundate them with so much where their head starts spinning and they end up thinking instead of playing. And when the guy crosses the lines to go play, that's what we want him to do, is play. We don't want him to think. These things got to be in there before you get out there. So, think it, get it thought out, now go play. So, and Joe's starting to accept a lot of that more now that he's a little more comfortable over there, and he can do. He realizes he can do a few more things, which is good.
I'm going to slip one more baseball question in, just because it's been a tough 4 years for the franchise. Right. There seems to be a lot of promise. What's your view of this year and the franchise going forward?
In all honesty, I try to be honest, because if I start lying, I'm too old to remember what I said.
I have that problem
too. I always tell the truth. And Phil Hughes was terrific last year. He was terrific. There may be a thought that at the end he got a little maybe tired or so. But, again, I thought he was terrific. I think most people agree. I think the question is he going to repeat? I don't know if you look at his numbers over the years. But I think as fans we have to hope that he's close to that, if not that much. We'll see. What do you win, 18 games, 19?
I think 18, I believe.
Well, let's hope he does that again. Okay. Whether he does or not remains to be seen. We'll have to wait and see. But, if you write it down, you pencil him in, let's say 17. That's a nice number. If it's 20, that's going to be great. Hopefully it's 17, 18. That would be good. Now you go to the big kid.
Santana?
No.
Gibson?
Gibby. Get Gibby. What was he, 500 last year, give or take?
Yeah, I can look this stuff up, too.
Well, again, you know this better.
He's pretty close.
Yeah. What was it, 13 and 12, 13, 12 and 13, whatever it was.
I think 12 and 13 pops in my mind.
Something like that. Well, just as to keep it moving here, is let's hope he wins 15 games and loses 12. Okay? Something like that. So you got Phil with 17, you got Gibby with 15.
Gibson was 13 and 12 last year. Hughes was 16 and 10.
15, 16, 15 wins maybe. He improves, more consistent. He should. More confidence, more ability, more talent, more acceptance of what he can do with a little more, consistency. He win 15, 16 games. So now you got Hughes with 17, 18, Gibby 15, 16. Now you're in the 30s already. The idea is to get to 60 and then throw the bullpen in there. You may have a guy in the bullpen, he's 6-2 or 7-1. He gets lucky, gets in the right spots where he wins 7. We see that happen.
Tony Fiore.
Have that. Yeah, that can happen. So then you got Santana, who's been, a 500 pitcher pretty much?
Pretty much.
So if he ends up 12 and 12, now you're into the 40s with your wins, 40-some, 44, 45. And then we got you got May. I thought he improved quite a bit as he went. We all know he didn't do well to start with. We all saw that. We all know that. That's gone, hopefully. I really have hopes that he's going to do well. I really do. He's capable. Now, whether he gives up a hit or two and then he starts nibbling on the corners, it remains to be seen. I hope he's past that, a la Joe Mays from years back. Let's keep firing. Throw them strikes. Take your chances. I'm hoping he can win 8 to 10 games. Now I'm into 50s. And then who do you want to pitch next?
Well, you got either Nolasco or Meyer.
Now, Ricky is a big question. We know he didn't do well last year. He knows he didn't do well. What I saw from Ricky, I had him down the street, down the minor league side, the one day with the group, and he was in our group, and he pitched his 10, 12 minutes, whatever it was. And I thought he got after it as good as I've ever seen him get after it. He was working on his fastball. He was working a lot on his curveball. And he meant business. I was impressed. I've never been a fan of his. But he impressed me that day. Now, whether he's going to continue to move forward, as you know, Jim, he's lost a lot of weight.
Mm-hmm.
He looks like a better athlete. He looks like he's into it a little bit more. I don't know why somebody would lose all that weight and not be into it.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty confident he's going to make a big stride forward. Now, if we can get him up to the 12, 13, maybe more. I don't know if I'm out here on the limb too far, but if he can do 12, 13, now we're into 60 wins. And now the bullpen throws in X amount. Now you're into 80-some, you know. So, again, a lot of that's maybe I'm wishful thinking, but I think we're certainly capable of that happening. Whether it's going to or not, I don't know. You don't have that crystal ball. We knew we'd be in Vegas making a donation or a wager.
That's what I always say.
But we don't. We don't know who's going to get hurt, or who's going to come up a little lame, or this or that. So it's hard, but it's certainly there's people there that can do it, and we should be optimistic that they are going to do it. The big guy, the tall guy we got from the Mets,
Pelfrey?
Big Mikey,
Mm-hmm.
we're just talking about, he's at Wichita
State, yep.
Yeah, they both got beat up a little bit. Well, they didn't get beat up, they got beat. But he was down about that. Well, we talked about that. And, and he seems to be throwing the ball fairly well to me. So, again, I don't know where he's going to fit, or if he's going to be a starter, or I don't know. I don't know how it's going to work, or what Neil Allen has in mind, or what Paul has in mind. So I think there's 6 names to choose from, which is always good. And so we'll see. We'll see what works. But, again, I just hope nobody gets hurt. I try to tell Paul that, Paul, you might get beaten these spring training games 13-3. As long as nobody gets hurt, it's a good day. So just remember, you get out of here each day without people getting hurt, it's a good day. So see if we can stay healthy and keep them on the field, and hopefully we stay a little consistent with that pitching and that outline that I have. Who knows? Everybody has their own outline. Who knows what's going to come true? It's like those guys doing the NFL drafts, mock drafts, whatever it's called. Got all these names, numbers, and all that. This is the same thing, but we'll see what comes to fruition come September.
Tom, I appreciate it.
Okay.
This is Souhan-Unfiltered.
That
Thanks
went
again.
Fast. I hope I didn't rattle on too long.
No, it's amazing. This format, I sat down with Terry or McCabe or something like that, and all of a sudden an hour's gone, and we felt, it's just a natural conversation. I really appreciate it.
I don't want my wife to hear this because I don't talk to her that long.
We won't advertise it then. Thanks to the local, thanks to Kieran's, thanks to O'Gara's, thank you for listening. And again, of course, thank you to Tom Kelly for taking the time today. We'll be talking to you soon.